wisdom. And we got them too. Hello. Good. How are you? Bill, I will be out of the country the next June 8th.
Okay.
So if I have an opportunity to Zoom in, I will, but I'm not hopeful.
On the same continent, or?
Italy.
Oh.
So jealous.
It's going to be nice.
Yeah.
How long are you staying?
We leave the 2nd and we come back the 11th.
Okay, nice.
On the second Tuesday.
Looking forward.
I bet.
Well, I knew that, but I assume, I guess I didn't, wasn't listening when I did it, so Sunday the second Wednesday. Well, that's, yeah, I'm not gonna get on Wednesday, that's clear. Yeah, I will remember that.
Hey. Yeah, how's it going?
Hey, how are you?
How's everybody?
Good, how are you
All
doing?
right.
Excellent.
You?
Somebody already sitting there next to you?
I think Inez is
I think that this is kind of the board.
Over that side over here?
Oh, no, either way, either way,
Okay.
either way. No, I'm
How
sorry.
you doing, sir? Excellent.
I'm not awake.
Hey, you're not the only one.
Good, how are
See,
you?
Bill, been a while.
It
Okay.
it has, it has.
Yeah,
You keeping the Chinese out of Guam, is that the idea?
that's what they're telling me. We'll see, I don't know. But I can't believe it's been a month since the last meeting. Went by quick.
Yep.
How you doing? Jeff Warren's over here.
Yeah, I thought he would be here fairly early, actually.
Look, I think there's a concert.
There is, I saw
Yeah.
that. I had a hard time getting parking.
Yeah, I was gonna say, the other thing I noticed is I got to about the second or third floor, and it was, half of it was under construction.
Yes, exactly.
Because I was
Just-
thinking I was gonna have to come all the way back
Yeah,
down.
me
and,
too.
you know. I kinda forgot about the, concert season, you know, at the amphitheater. James Watts,
Who is Dylan?
nice to meet you, sir.
Nice to meet you.
Might need to bring some pen and paper.
This is my first.
Hello.
He actually, well, hey, how are
How you
you?
doing? Pretty good. I'm doing live and well.
No, probably not.
Quality of the, was really bad. Thank you. Got a hand-me-down printer.
Okay.
I have a packet.
You went from being thin to got meat on the skeleton now.
So, if anybody wants to see the extra one of these?
I was out of town for a while. I never know these things. Taking our sound.
How you doing? You survived from last night? You survived from last night?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got through the month.
Oh, that's right. It was Monday night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm thinking I had another meeting last night,
Something dairy?
at the office.
Oh, yeah. Stop at the dairy market, yeah. Cool. Were you in their apartment in the dairy market? Oh, does that not seem happening? Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I remember when he was building them, and we know the guy who built them. He showed us plans for them, I've never seen inside. Not something you probably didn't know.
Reverend Jones Turner has arrived. Pam O'Barry has arrived. Dr. Good. Okay, we'll get moving in a minute, as soon as James comes back.
I learned to bring a sweater.
Are we public now?
We are online now. The meeting has not been called to order yet.
Okay.
James,
I just want to say I had to have a COVID booster today, so I'm kind of, they always make me a little loopy and sleepy. So I just disappear.
Okay.
That's why.
okay,
Okay.
understood.
Pass out, we won't pay.
Mhm.
it's 6:38. I guess we should call ourselves to order. Thanks, everybody, for coming to the May meeting of the Police Civilian Oversight Board. Very excited to see people here, particularly our new Executive Director, who will introduce herself shortly. First order of business, does anyone have any announcements or shout-outs that they would like to share? I guess not. The next order is approval of the agenda, which was sent to you sent to you last week, and you should have a hard copy. Are there any comments, changes, motion to accept?
I will.
Any seconds?
Second.
Okay. Ms. Krischel?
Yes.
Mr. Watson?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Very good. Now, you're not a voting member, Mr. Little, I'm sorry, but the fact that you are here is extremely, there he is.
Sorry,
Young man.
You get my text?
No. But I figured
A
it's,
few minutes later, it was on my way.
so that's, we're good. The next order of business is for me to introduce our new executive director. I'm very happy and excited that she has decided to join us. She started work on the 1st of May. Just to touch very quickly on the highlights of her very impressive resume and experience. She worked for 26 years for the Newark, New Jersey Police Department, starting as patrol officer, becoming a detective, and ultimately becoming the first Hispanic woman to reach the rank of captain in that department. She has been a precinct commander and commanded the Office of Internal Affairs for 11 years, where she oversaw all investigations into allegations of misconduct, violations of criminal law, and administrative rules violations by members of the department. She also led the Special Victims Division, where she managed a variety of intricate and sensitive investigations concerning domestic violence, sexual assault, child endangerment, and missing persons. She's a skilled and experienced investigator and has received a number of awards and citations for community and public service. Would you like to say hi?
Hello, everyone. You pretty much said it all for me, Bill, and it's a pleasure for me to be here, and I'm actually looking forward to the good work that I know we can do. It's going to take time for us to get to where it is we want to go, because we want to do it right, but I'm excited to start that work.
Okay, anyone have any questions for?
No, we're excited to have you, though.
Okay,
Welcome.
Thank you.
welcome indeed. Okay, Mr. Trail, it is time for first round of public comments. We can start in the room here. Kate, do you have any?
Could you all just introduce yourself?
Oh. Keisha, yeah. We're all new members, so.
Right.
Hi, I'm Lakeisha Washington.
I'm Charles Fleming.
Jeff Frazier, Vice Chair.
Bill Mendez.
James Watson.
George Dillard.
Susan Krischel.
Oh, and we have the Reverend Jones Turner online, and Pam O'Barry, who is our
Pam.
independent counsel. Thank you.
Patricia.
Thank you, Pam, for coming.
I,
Mr. Trail, is there anybody online?
There's currently one attendee. If you'd like to speak at this time, please click the raise hand icon or press star 9 if you're joining us via telephone. And Mr. Chair, we have no hands raised at this time.
All right, thank you very much. All right, the next order of business is the status of complaints and review requests. Being out of town for the last 10 days or so, I've asked the Vice Chair, Mr. Frazier, to handle this issue for us.
Thank you, Bill. So this is only for April, last month, not since the beginning of the year. We have 3 open complaints. The first one, a complaint filed regarding a breaking and entering call for service received on April 10th. That complaint is pending, and so there's been no finding yet. It is still open from Lieutenant Haney. The second one was received on April 13th. The summary of the complaint filed regarding courtesy directed toward the complainant during an accident. That one also is pending. And then the third one is a complaint, April 18th, complaint regarding a detention. And that one is service, it's a service-related inquiry, which means it is a matter of concern brought forth to the department, which does not rise to a violation of departmental policy or a violation of the law, so will be handled administratively in-house at Charlottesville Police Department.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Yep.
Okay.
And as you know, we still have a longstanding review request, which with the appointment of our executive director and some hard work from Susan Critchell, we may actually be moving towards making some progress on that. Any other questions about complaints or investigations at this point?
But just for my edification, since I'm during the process, how do these complaints come in? Do they come in through our portal?
These all came in, Madam Director, through IA. They were filed on the IA website and then submitted to Lieutenant Haney or Sergeant Wade, and then he gives us an update every month.
Very good, thank you.
And they may or may not end up in our lab.
Yeah, and there was at least one instance in which a complaint came in through our portal, which we sent to IA with an explanation to the complainant that we're not doing investigations yet, and the complainant said, okay, that's fine, let's see what IA does, and then, so.
Very good, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Now, our everyone's favorite section, which is training. What I requested folks to do during the last month was to read through the operating procedures, operating procedure 9 and 10 for the PCOB, which deal with hearings. And hearings are kind of the hairiest and the most complicated things that the board handles, along with investigations. And what I'd like to do is, entertain questions, comments about, what you read. And maybe I'll pose some of the questions. Anybody have anything that they would like to raise right at this point? Okay, I have a question. Oh, yes, excuse me.
I was looking at when individuals have an emotional response or tend to get upset, and I'm paraphrasing, during a hearing. It was determined that the executive director could make a determination, I believe, as to what to do when that occurs. So my question is, when individuals get angry or upset, isn't that kind of expected for some cases?
Well, yes, I think that is, and hearings, are very complicated, and the language, which I think is still in the operating procedures, says that the complainants should be given leeway. The idea is that this is a safe place where the complainants can, share their feelings and their experiences, what happened to them, how it made them feel, and tell that to the board. The hearing examiner's job is to basically make sure things don't get out of hand. We, for example, don't want people yelling back and forth at each other. The hearing examiner can stop, can continue the hearing and say, we've got to calm down. We can't proceed any further. The hearing examiner can also say, well, that question is really not relevant now. In the sense of someone's asking, when was the last time you were arrested? And so that's another protection that's given to the complainants as part of the hearing examiner powers.
Okay.
Good question. So I'm going to ask the question again. Simple. When can we hold a hearing? And I'll answer my question very quickly, and that is, we can hold a hearing after an investigation. And how many what kinds of investigations are there? Well, there is an independent investigation conducted by an independent investigator or by our executive director. Or there's a review request, in which case the hearing is about the internal affairs investigation. That's why we combined both types of hearings into one, because they're both about an investigation, and many of the rules and procedures apply in both cases. Can people be represented? Can they have representatives at a hearing?
Yes.
Do they have to be lawyers?
I don't think so.
No.
Can't have.
No, great. As it turned to, well, I don't want to.
No, I was saying.
No,
you
no,
can't
you-
have,
Yeah,
you can only, you can't have a lawyer or anything like
you actually can have a lawyer.
that. You can?
Yes, the operating procedures allow an individual to designate someone as their representative. If it does not need to be an attorney. It can be, a parent or a friend, but it can also be an attorney. And that person can speak for the individual, but that person cannot ask questions of the other parties. So a big fancy lawyer can't come in and again, start, badgering someone. So that's good. So what is a hearing examiner? Where do they come from?
To be determined.
It's to be determined. Well, are they?
Susan is working on it.
Susan
That's the answer.
is working on it, yeah, but are they affiliated, how are they affiliated with the board?
So they're a non-biased facilitator, as you were mentioning earlier, to keep things, moving smoothly, allowing both sides to speak. Typically, we're looking for, I guess, retired judges and that type of person, or somebody with at least a law degree and some 20 years experience, I don't know, but,
I'll tell you the two places I'm looking.
Mhm.
One of them is gonna be with the Charlottesville Albemarle Bar Association to see if
Okay.
there's any retired attorneys that would like to play a role as a hearing examiner. The other group that I'm talking to is the executive secretary of the Supreme Court,
Okay.
which normally assigns, and actually in some previous regulations, they were the required method for us to obtain a hearing examiner. I think we've now softened that with some later regulations, but they still are a very viable option for obtaining hearing officers. I think the tricky part that's gonna be for us is developing a roster of them, because you don't want the same hearing officer to be there
Yeah.
for every single hearing. So, time will tell how well we're able to
Time will
build
tell.
this.
It is a paid position, so we will be signing each individual to an engagement letter, and they will be working for us.
Is it a set fee that we
Hasn't
stipulated?
been set yet.
Okay.
So,
I imagine, though, if we did set it, we'd have a better shot at
oh, yeah.
weeding out the people that.
No,
Because some
I
will look
think
at it and
so.
say, all right, I'm willing to do that, and some may look at it and say, I'm not.
It's not worth my time, yeah, certainly. Yeah, no, yeah, we will hear from Ms. Krischel shortly about progress in identifying such people. I should point out, go ahead, sure.
Same kind of question. And I'm sure you've done all this already, this research. But what about the board in, Fairfax, where Hansel was, and the one, I think, in Norfolk, Virginia Beach has one? What, do you have any idea? If they've had these types of hearings, have they?
That's a really good no, I don't know the answer to that, and that's a really good question.
Yeah, because I
As to
would
where they
think.
obtain it, I mean, obviously, the hearings are gonna be in person and be here, well, most likely they'll be
Yeah.
in person and be here. So if they're too far away, it might be difficult to get them to come down to Charlottesville.
Everybody loves Charlottesville.
But they might.
Fine country.
I don't know
I'm just
how,
kidding.
whether we're putting them up in a hotel and giving them food and all of that. I think we'll probably be paying them
Right.
per diem rate would be my guess, an hourly rate for their time.
But thank you.
It'd be
But
like-
thanks
be
for
like
that
one day, though,
suggestion.
I mean,
If we have
Yeah.
trouble finding, I mean, the executive secretary
Yeah.
office is located in Richmond.
right, I mean.
So, we'll see what kind of a roster they have in Charlottesville, but
Yeah.
that's an option.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
maybe, because I mean, I think those boards have been around for about a decade, plus or minus. So
Yeah.
I don't know,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a good shot, I'll take it. Okay, here's the next question. Are board hearings public or closed? Anybody want to guess?
Public.
Yes, indeed. We can go in closed session. You know, we have to obey the provisions of Virginia Open Government Act v. FOIA. So that means that the presumption is that our hearings, which are meetings, are public. If it turns out that in the exigency of a particular case, we need to discuss information that is held as confidential under state law, we can go into closed session, but that is expected to be a very rare occurrence.
That was actually one of my questions too, is if there was any issue about safety for a particular witness, is there a method by which that person can testify either behind a screen or, you know, in a confidential room or confidential proceeding? I can imagine that there may be instances where police civilian complaints could get a little heated, and
Certainly.
there may be questions about someone's safety.
No, understood. And we're working on it, you know, one of the things that we need to, which I think is later, another item on our agenda is talking about getting ready for mock hearing, in other words, to actually hold, take a fact pattern, and like we did with Hansel, and you know, work through it and have individuals play roles as the complainant and the complainant's lawyer and the police officer and so on.
I have a question.
Sure.
So what is the board's responsibility, or what part do they play during a hearing? If we have a hearing officer, what part does the PCOB board actually play?
We're decision makers. We're the triers of fact. And
So the hearing officer is just there to mediate, moderate, but not
Mediate.
necessarily make a decision on what's been said?
that is correct. Up to us. Yep. And so that leads to the next question is, how does the board make findings? We vote in public.
Vote in public, yeah.
And that's basically, again, even if we discuss issues in confidence, we have to come back into open meeting and make our actual findings in public. What's the standard of proof that we are required to consider when we make our decisions?
Preponderance of the evidence.
Yes, preponderance, that is correct.
If we could just circle back to
Oh,
Ms.
sure.
Gonzalez's question. We can also ask questions, I mean, we are also doing the
Yes.
questioning. The judge is, or the administrator, whatever, is just running the show, but we're doing the inquiries and we're the triers of fact.
Do we have a format already set up of how that goes? Is it a Q&A?
It's
type of
a
situation?
small, well, there's a small section in PCOB 10.
The 81-page magazine?
Yeah, that PCOB 10. And the basic idea is that when when the executive director recommends that we go forward and recommends that we hold a hearing, then the parties may attend a pre-hearing conference. And the pre-hearing conference sets up, the issues like who's going to go first. Are you going to present evidence? Are you going to present a witness? How long do you think it's going to take? And whatever other evidentiary issues, procedural issues the complainants want to raise. So,
I think it might be helpful for some people here to know what preponderance of the evidence means too, and it simply means that something is more likely than not to have actually occurred.
It's a lesser standard than
It's
beyond a
certainly-
reasonable doubt.
Oh, much
Yeah.
less.
yep. It's,
Hey, Bill,
yes.
has there been any thought of us doing another mock hearing?
Yes.
Because that was,
Oh, we must.
I think that's kind of like one of those things, like you play sports and you break down afterwards. 'Cause there was some, there's some thing, we
Oh, yeah.
had never had a mock hearing, right, before, maybe about a year ago, around this time of year, and, so everybody was new. I
Yeah.
mean, both sides, police, us, the hearing examiner, the whole nine, right?
Yeah.
And, I thought it went pretty well in some ways, but, then we, afterwards, there was different feedback that it didn't go well, so I don't know, we look at that and break down, okay, is this where?
Well, we don't, we want to, if everybody's happy, we're probably not doing our job, so.
Yeah,
But we do want due process. So we've had an individual, at least one person complain that the procedure is inquisitorial in the sense that it's not an adversarial proceeding where the lawyers fight it out. It's basically, we get the evidence and we evaluate the evidence. So it does fall on us to ask the questions if there are inconsistencies between the two parties. Say it's going to fall to us rather than, say, the parties to ask those probing questions.
Bill, excuse me, it's probably worth mentioning also that there's prep time on our part involved if we have to look at body cam footage and police reports and the like. So, I think the expectation is we come in prepped.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, we will,
We don't just come in cold.
yeah, we will see the, the police are required to give us access to all the evidence that is, evidence and documents that are necessary for us to make our decisions. And that's good, but it means that we've got a lot of work to do also. So, it's in fact quite revolutionary for Charlottesville.
Yeah.
So, Couple more. Can an officer's past record of citizen complaints be introduced during a hearing? Yep, it can. Can a complainant's past encounters with police be introduced as evidence?
Me.
Answer is correct, that's maybe. But it has to be, if you read through PCOB 10, it has to support a pattern of behavior that is being addressed in the particular hearing that we're looking at. So it has to directly impeach the.
I think if it also relates to moral turpitude, I think, doesn't that also? Something relating to untruthfulness
It certainly.
in a witness can also be.
It could also relate to mental illness, if that's relevant. I mean, not just willy-nilly, but if it is, part of the fact picture.
So having said that, I have a probing question. The officer's disciplinary history can be introduced during a hearing or as part of the investigation?
Both.
Both. And so can the officer's disciplinary history be used to make a determination of guilt? Or are we just using it as a basis for determination of what the penalty will be if they're found guilty of what they're alleged to have done?
Well, I'm of the opinion that every instance should be treated separately and that there should be sufficient evidence to show a particular act at a particular time was committed. And I tend to think that in a situation where we're talking about a disciplinary recommendation, then a bad history might become, in fact, it is part of the progressive.
But not to be utilized as a determination of guilt?
Not to be utilized as determination of guilt, yeah. Okay.
You know, look at it, just think about some of that. The case that we did the mock trial on, I know everybody wasn't privy to that a year ago, but if my memory serves me correctly, we were looking to see if the investigation was thorough.
Yes.
And that wasn't necessarily whether or not the officer committed misconduct.
Correct.
And so, I'm assuming there's gonna be cases like that, or scenarios like that, where we're just seeing if there was a complete.
Yes.
Or was that because it was the old ordinance?
It was under the old ordinance.
But even so,
Right.
if we are responding to a review request from a complainant who doesn't like the internal affairs finding, our findings are, we agree, the investigation was complete and unbiased, and we agree with it. The investigation was complete, but we don't agree with the result, or the investigation was insufficient and it needs to go.
Right.
If we are dealing with, or our hearing is about an independent investigation that we conduct, we're going to get a recommendation from the executive director, okay, they did or did not violate this section of the general order number such and such. And then we will make that, in that case, we make the actual decision, yes, the evidence is sufficient for that to be the case. So. Okay, speaking of disciplinary recommendations or powers, can anybody tell me when we get a chance to make disciplinary recommendations and what our powers are?
At the conclusion of the evidence.
At the conclusion of a hearing, if the board considers that a sustained allegation amounts to, okay, what's the term? A serious breach of guidance, then we can then set about making a disciplinary recommendation. That recommendation can be made during that hearing, or it can be made at another board meeting. It has to be consistent with the existing guidance and general orders, particularly the disciplinary matrix. So when if someone does force outside of guidance, first offense, there's a range of punishments for that, and then we would be bound to, unless there was some extraordinary circumstance, to make our recommendation within those bounds.
Is it worth mentioning that we don't have, the chief has the final say, but if he disagrees with our recommendation, he has to do so in writing? Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
We recommend disciplinary action to the chief, we don't have final say on it.
Yep, and it hasn't happened yet, so we don't
Right,
know.
we don't
We don't
know.
know how it's going to work out. Again, the disciplinary categories are quite broad, and so there's a lot of leeway in many of the rules and regulations.
Excuse me, is it also my understanding that in the event there is a parting of the ways between our recommendations and whether, let's say the chief disagrees with our findings, that we also have the ability to appeal it to the city manager?
Yes. Yes, that's.
Which, at that point, then the city manager would have the final
Is the
say.
final authority, yes, ma'am.
Yep. You got it. Kind of running out of questions here.
I was wondering if Ms. O'Berry might have had any thoughts or comments, just in case we may have butchered anything up. Since a few of us aren't lawyers, I know we have some lawyers over here, or a lawyer over here, but do we have everything correct?
Well, I will state that Mr. Mendez was as much a writer of the ops as I was.
Right.
And so he knows those probably better than anyone else. I would probably put myself a step behind him. So I would certainly say, and I have been listening and looking at the ops as we go through, and every response has been appropriate and accurate for what the ops dictate.
I'm taking you to take the LSAT.
Well,
Go back to school, go back to school, Bill.
no, thank you, no, thank you.
We have space for you in the firm, Bill, if you're ready to make the jump.
Yeah, okay, well, I think that'd be a conflict of interest, probably. Anyway. Okay, just a couple more questions. Can anyone be compelled to make a statement or answer questions at a hearing? Answer.
We have subpoena power.
Yeah, not without the use of subpoena power. So, unless.
And I think the officer can never be compelled, is that correct?
Garrity's
Garrity.
the issue. The Garrity case is an issue. I'm sure our Madam Director has some experience with that.
Well, with the Garrity, they have obviously an obligation to submit their administrative reports through their agency. But Garrity makes it clear that if there's any, in other words, they can't be, anything that they put on paper there can be used in a trial against them, done like particularly in a criminal trial.
In a criminal action.
So you have to be very careful with the Garrity rule.
Yep. And so, yeah, and it's a very, it's a very extended process through which the executive director of the board goes through the steps of getting access to information that they need to make decisions if they can't get it. And so first, you go to the chief of police, and if you don't get satisfaction there, you go to the city manager, and then the board can vote by two-thirds majority to ask you to apply for a subpoena. But the whole power of the chief and the whole power of the city manager is meant to be brought to bear first, you know. So
I did
that-
see that it said we had to exhaust all other options
we have-
first.
Exactly, so.
And it's probably worth mentioning here, Bill, that if the allegation rises to the level of criminal charges, we don't get it. It goes right to the Commonwealth Attorney's Office. So those are out of our jurisdiction.
Yeah, so if we are doing an investigation, you are leading an investigation, and you find
Criminality.
reasonable.
It's an immediate referral to the.
It's
city
immediate,
attorney.
it's immediate referral. And we, the intent, I think, or the strong preference and the custom here has been that you don't do any administrative investigations while a criminal is pending. Although in our operating procedures, we can get with the city attorney and decide if we can do a
In the way of a
parallel
bifurcated investigation?
Yes, so.
Do you want to clarify too, what happens if we as a board do not agree on the
which?
determination?
On what?
On the ruling,
It's a majority.
majority?
It's not unanimous.
It's majority. In the old, one of the first drafts of the PCOB, there was a specific requirement that there be room for minority reports in our findings. I would certainly intend that that be the case.
A dissenting opinion?
Dissenting
Dissenting opinion.
opinions, yeah. So if it is controversial, that's, as far as we've gotten is a majority at this point. Yeah, is there, yes?
Just a question. I'm confused about independent investigations. It's in part 3 of the powers and duties. And it stated that if the investigation was incomplete or otherwise unsatisfactory, the board may request the executive director to conduct an independent investigation of the incident. What did those situations look like?
I've never run into, we haven't gotten very far in the process. But we have sort of all agreed that if we felt during a review of an internal affairs report that there was a serious deficiency which could be better and more expeditiously addressed by the executive director rather than sending it back to internal affairs, that we would do that. Again, I think that's kind of be like a minor branch on our task list. I don't think that's going to happen all that much.
And I imagine that under normal circumstances, or at least in my experience, we're going to probably find out about a deficiency through the complainant themselves, where they will receive the letter from the police department indicating what the outcome is. They'll disagree with the outcome, and at that point, they'll ask us to look at it. And once I look at it, I may actually determine there was something, say for example, that wasn't done that should have been done, that might have made it easy, not easier, but in other words, they could have either justified, sustained or not sustained the allegation, or that might have been or should have been introduced or included in the investigation to better explain to the complainant why it wasn't sustained, so they understand. And it's my understanding from speaking to Lieutenant Haney that they actually make an effort in their letter to the complainants to explain what their findings are. Like, in other words, we didn't find it, but this is why we did not. So what I want to make sure is also that there's a mechanism in place that if somewhere down the line additional information becomes available, that we have the option of reopening an investigation. So in that case, it would be more work to be done.
Yeah, and we discussed that at our meeting today, in that the board has the power to reopen investigations after the time lapse, the year after the incident or the 45 days after the decision letter. So, yeah, good.
Thank you.
Yes?
I am curious, though, about the requirement that no oaths or affirmations be required from witnesses who are testifying. What is the thought process behind that?
That was one of those things that the then councilman, now Mayor Snook, felt was very important and was kind of insisted on.
Interesting.
Yeah. But as I have discussed with several people, we need technical corrections to our operating procedures. I mean, you know, there are a little, there's improper language, bad, in some cases, and there are some things that we meant to put in that didn't get in. So sometime later this year, we will be thinking about a list of amendments that we can take back to the city council.
Ms. O'Berry, do you have a thought about that question? Did you hear the question, Ms.?
Yes, related to oaths.
Yes.
Yes, that was early on, I believe,
Right.
when Ms. Robertson was still a part of the group, and Mr. Mendez and I, you know, I came to it sort of trying to bring together the will of the board, not really I didn't make policy decisions, and it was very much advised that that was the sort of the policy decision that had been made early on, that there was not to be there were not to be oaths, so as not to deter people from wanting to come forward and to participate in the process. So the process, the sort of the underlying policy concept that as it was explained to me, is that we wanted to make this forum as accessible to the public as possible without putting a chilling effect on any public participation in the process. And so, so that was sort of, as I understood the policy, that guidance, and so that's where it ended up. But that, again,
But that was the rationale.
yes, that was the rationale as it was explained to me.
Okay, thank you.
And Bill, if I missed something there, you could.
No, you
fill in
reminded me,
anything.
in fact, that was the,
Is there ordinance in place that suggests that legal action can be taken against the complainant that actually makes an oath or affirmation that later is determined to be untrue?
No, because there are not going to be oaths or affirmations in this process. I don't know if the police department requires oaths or affirmations for their complaint process, but on this side, if it initiates on this side, there is no oath or affirmation required with it issuing the complaint or in testifying in a hearing.
so what we have, again, is sort of administrative controls when when you're screening complaints and when you're screening review requests, you go to the Internal Affairs Department and you can look at the evidence and you can say, well, you know, this just doesn't hold up. And you can bring it back to us and we can agree with you or not agree with you. And that's
No, I was just concerned
Yeah,
in terms of the
that's
rationale
fine.
behind not having the oath or affirmation. Was it because people might be afraid to bring forth a complaint if they're later found out that it was untrue or that they fabricated or embellished or whatever, that there might be some kind of repercussion against them, which I totally understand.
Okay,
So, yeah.
that's good. All right. All right, well, so I hope these questions have been stimulating. You know, if you haven't had a chance to look at PCOB 9 and PCOB 10, I strongly recommend you go through it and take a look. And it comes by osmosis. There's a lot of stuff that you might have to read twice. But we did our best, right? Right, Pam?
Many early mornings, many late nights. We certainly did.
Yeah. So any more questions about the, about review hearings right now? About the training. Now, in the meantime, we have actually been going forward to deal with the administrative hoops that we need to jump through to get to a review hearing. The first one, of course, as we said, being finding hearing examiners. The other, pulling together what is called a desk book, which is the handbook for the hearing examiners, which tells them what they can and cannot do. And our independent counsel has recently provided us with a draft. I don't know if you want to say anything about it. Yes, no? Pam? Oh, we're just asking about the desk book.
Yes, and as you were asking about the desk book, I was providing commentary to a comment from Ms. Chriselle on the desk book. This should be, I'm really just kind of reconciling your comments, your feedback, and Ms. Chriselle's feedback. And so I would imagine by Tuesday, we will have this turned around and a sort of a final draft for you to share with all of the board, mark it up, or whatever else you need to do. And then, but yes, the final draft for you to sort of send to the rest of the board for review, if that's the process you'd like to have. We could have that to you by Tuesday.
Yes, so thanks very much. So basically, within the next few days or the next week, you can expect to receive, it's a fairly relatively manageable document that describes the procedures that the hearing examiner has to enforce during.
And it is not 81 pages. It is, as I'm looking at it,
Yeah.
it is 12 and an easy reading of 12.
By the way, thank you for that 81 pages. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you should see Inez's office. She's got, PCOB 1 and PCOB and another pile and another pile and another, well, anyway. So thank you, and thank you, Susan, for providing comments on that as well. And thank you for getting, sort of walking up the trail with the Bar Association. We can talk this week about, whether we want to, when we get the draft, what the next step is.
Sure, because I think you asked about the status of it, and really where it's at right now is they're waiting for us to give them more information about what it means to be a hearing, and by they, I mean both the Executive Secretary of the Supreme Court and also the President of the Bar Association. So you had written a letter a few weeks ago, which I thought was a fine letter, but we're so close to having the desk book finished that what makes the most sense to me is send the desk book,
Yeah.
PCOB 9 and 10, to those two parties. And I think that will give them everything that they need to know, with possibly the exception of how much the hearing examiners will be paid to do this work. I think that would be a nice addition.
Stop share, I don't want to share that.
I think that would be a nice addition to send them as well, and I think that
Yeah,
would
okay,
encourage some, hopefully quick response.
all righty.
So I had a question.
Yes.
Is the desk book a new document, or is this like a revision from what has been used in the past?
This is a brand new thing, because this structure is rather different from other structures, from a traditional administrative law judge. Traditional administrative law judge has a lot broader powers than the hearing examiner, who's just going to be a presiding officer.
The desk book's almost like an instruction manual for them.
So would we need to get further approval from like city council before?
The city attorney has to approve it.
Do we have a city attorney?
Well, not yet.
No?
A couple of assistants
Yeah,
holding down the
so-
fort.
Okay.
Everything is
More stable than it's been though since I've been part of this board.
Yep. Okay, let me,
You've been through a lot, James.
Yeah. Managers, you name it.
let me pull up the next item here.
We all came in after all the hard work. It was pretty much done.
Preparation for review here, Bill.
Yeah, that was what we just did. I'm looking for the
Bias police.
bias base, yes. Okay, so, may I borrow that?
You may go on that.
Okay, so we now are coming to our old business. And the two items that we have under old business are our recommendation, the board's recommendation related to bias-based policing, and a resolution of thanks to Tito Durrett for his help while he was the interim police chief. I really would like to get these off our desks tonight if we possibly can. The bias-based policing recommendation is really intended as sort of an easy, hurdle, a low-hanging fruit that we can get done to establish the principle that we can make such recommendations. It includes, the first paragraph says, the board is given the power to make these kind of recommendations. The gist of the recommendation is that the current bias-based policing order defines bias-based policing as detention, interdiction, or other disparate treatment of any person on the sole basis of their racial, ethnic status or characteristics. Now, of course, that totally ignores implicit bias. And it really is, and doesn't apply in a lot of situations. And so the recommendation goes on to cite a number of more recent definitions of bias-based policing from the President's Task Force and from the Police Executive Research Forum, and gives for example, from the Commission on Accreditation for Law Enforcement Agencies, the definition of bias-based policing is the application of police authority based on a common trait of a group. This includes, but is not limited to, race, ethnicity, national origin, religion, age, gender identity, sexual orientation, immigration status, disability, housing status, occupation, or language fluency. And there are another approximately 10 definitions from Virginia and other organizations that are considerably more up-to-date and consistent with best practices in policing recently. So we don't need to do all that much because I've already sent it to the chief because he asked to see a draft. But I would like someone to introduce a motion just making this recommendation a formal decision of the board.
So move.
Second?
I'm thinking Robert's rules here, this is about the discussion point, real quick. Is that after we?
Yeah, after a second.
So somebody seconds. I mean, I'll second, even though I want to.
Oh, no, go ahead.
I
Now,
have a
what do you want?
question, but.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we're saying that we want, we got the 10, basically, interesting, even Harrisonburg is on this list as places. We're saying that, just to make sure I'm on the same page, the chief is looking at this, and we're just saying, yeah, we're gonna pick one that we like. City picking one that they.
The most, there. If you remember, you weren't here, I guess, last meeting, when we talked about this issue. He was here and he talked about it very briefly. But he said he was perfectly flexible. I mean, that he is re-examining all of the general orders, as quickly as he can. And he understands the need for revisions to many of them, including this one. And so the basic recommendation is Recommendation, as a first step in revising CPD's approach to addressing bias-based policing, the board urges the CPD to broaden the definition of what constitutes bias-based policing to be more consistent with current thinking on the nature of discriminatory police actions, and to be more applicable to situations addressed in the real world when evaluating citizen complaints. So it gives him leeway, and he's ready to move forward anyway.
James, I might add, I spoke to him about it, and he also agreed with what Bill said about it needs to go further in terms of implicit bias, and he wants to find a way to try to bring that into the mix, because he's concerned about not so much the obvious stuff, but the more subtle stuff. I mean, he's on board with that. At least, that's what he told me.
Yeah, all right. So in theory, though, he could be using any one of the 10 as sort of a basis for something that he creates himself, or his team creates.
Yeah,
And
well,
then
he is,
essentially,
yeah, he actually is changing the accreditation of this, the accreditation body of the department from something to CALIA, which is the definition that I read to you. That's the National Accreditation Board.
Okay.
So it's not a long shot that he would choose that particular definition.
okay. Just wanted to make sure I was cool.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's perfectly all right.
So this is the first recommendation, but will they come back to us with like how they plan to implement it?
Yes, and we will get a chance, and whenever they revise a general order, we get a copy. And we've got a chance to comment. Someone like to call a question, or are there any other?
Call the question.
Ms. Krischel? Mr. Watson?
Yes, sorry.
Okay.
Brain slow.
Reverend?
Slow brain, now I'm off of it.
Fine.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's a yes? Yep.
Yes.
Jeff?
Yes.
Mr. Yes?
Yes.
And Keisha?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
I'll take that.
Okay, now I'll take this one.
Yes, that's for you.
Okay, the next issue I would like to read, which is, this is, and the language, pardon me, is not particularly, it's not particularly flowery. I mean, a lot of these are very flattering, and but I just wanted to make this kind of straightforward. And this being a resolution, I can read the resolution, and then whenever anyone wants to call the resolution, you can call it and we can vote on it. Whereas the Charlottesville Police Oversight Board has been empowered to issue commendations to individuals who have provided outstanding service to the community, City Code 16-2-467. Whereas Major LaTroy A. Tito Durrett provided outstanding leadership to the Charlottesville Police Department as an interim chief during a period of difficult transition. Whereas Major Durrett established strong lines of communication with the board and its executive director and sent a clear message that just and fair policing was a basic value of the Charlottesville Police Department. Whereas Major Durrett afforded the Civilian Oversight Board unprecedented cooperation and support. Come on. Excuse me. Okay, so whereas Major Durrett afforded the Civilian Oversight Board unprecedented cooperation and support in pursuit of its mission, therefore, the Charlottesville Police Civilian Oversight Board issues this commendation to Major Durrett for outstanding community service and their thanks for his assistance and support. You can agree with it, or you can propose edits to it, but I do think that he was really instrumental in helping the board to move forward, you know, while he was in charge. And so I'm, you know, I think this is definitely an appropriate thing. Anybody have any strong feelings, comments?
I mean, I didn't know him, so this was before my time, and I'm not
Okay.
really in a place to say.
I heartily endorse it.
Okay.
I've always said, you know, he made it so very available, very easy to work with. You know, we've been through a lot of different changes, and you know, some folks didn't want to talk to us at times, and I know there's going to be people watching this saying, "Oh, you're being too friendly to the police," but I mean, the red was professional, and transparent. And that's
Yeah, I mean, when we had our sort of, our almost hearing, it was Chief Durrett who led us, who gave us access to the internal affairs files and to the body worn camera footage, and that has never happened before in Charlottesville. And so that sort of, I think, jolted people to the fact that police oversight wasn't the end of the world, and that you know, you could do it. So understand that folks who were not here may wish to abstain. That's fine. Someone want to call a question? Yes, would you, in favor of the resolution?
yeah, yes.
Ms. Krischel?
I'm just going to abstain because I don't
She
know it.
wasn't here.
Yeah.
Yes.
Board votes yes. The chair votes yes. Ms. Turner?
Abstain.
Okay. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. All right, so what I will do is get this made up nice, and perhaps we can arrange to present it to him at our next meeting, or whenever it's convenient. Oh, okay. Oh, okay, okay, he's leaving, huh?
Yes.
No.
In about 10 days, he's going to Florida, so.
Oh,
We
okay.
want to
Well, let's
the
expedite,
presentation.
let's get this done, let's get this done.
He's going
Okay.
on vacation or he's leaving?
He's retired.
He's retiring. Okay.
Good for him.
Almost 40 years in.
Seriously.
You want to change your vote then?
So just for my own edification, how many for, how many abstentions?
2 abstentions and 5 yeses.
And nobody's opposed.
No
No,
noes.
no no's. Well, thank you all. He was a friend of ours while he was leading the department.
The other thing I would add, Bill, is that he set a tone in terms of, you know, there wasn't always a welcome sign for us next door, and he set a tone within the department when he was the acting chief of legitimizing us, which the new chief, of course, has carried forth, but it was really him that, you know, put the camel's nose under the tent, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
And for the record, when I was going through the messages on the old machine, there were 2 very, very lovely messages from members of the community in reference to him specifically and his leadership. And I actually saved those
Oh, good.
in the hope that I can get him to listen to it before he leaves.
Oh, that's great. Okay. Okay, does anyone else have any business they would like to raise before we go to our second public comment session? Okay, now we're on to public comments. Anyone in the room would like to speak? Anyone on the line, Mr. Trail?
If you'd like to speak at this time, please click the raise hand icon or press star 9 if you're joining us via telephone. And Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. Move to adjourn?
I was gonna ask
Oh.
Jeff a real quick question.
Yes.
now that we're going into the summer, there's gonna be some events coming up. And last year, we mirrored a lot of events with Human Rights Commission.
Yes.
And so I know Soul Seaville, or if I have the name right, that's
Yep.
coming up, Soul Fest.
Soul Fest.
Then Sabroso came after that. I think there's a couple of them that happened prior to those events that are gonna be coming up, I think, in the next 6 weeks, so we should keep an eye, or maybe even communicate with our human rights.
Yeah, maybe reach out to
Brethren.
them in terms of, can we link with them, because, and I'm certainly on board to attend some of those, because I thought it was really effective.
I'll do that as well, and we may have some items.
Solo Seaville is being run by the XR.
That's right, that's
So,
your,
uh,
Yeah, I was gonna say, we could get
I am
Susan
happy
on
to-
board with that too.
July, I think it was.
No, it's in August.
August, yeah, it was pretty
Yeah.
hot.
I can't
know it was-
remember the
yeah.
exact day.
Yeah.
I'll find out,
Okay,
but I'm happy to keep people apprised of
Okay.
what's coming in.
Great.
I think we may have some swag maybe left over.
Yes.
I don't know if,
Excellent.
where
Swag's
Hansel.
always good.
Well, I
I
tell
can
you
text him and, you know.
what, if you all give me the events that are coming up, I'll try to, as quickly as humanly possible, order some swag that we can distribute to the public, because,
Right.
again, public engagement is gonna be really big for us. I think.
Exactly.
We have to
Yeah.
get out there.
And we might even need you, I don't know, to even get us set up with some of those, based on your availability. But, yeah, I know there's some events happening soon. I just gotta get on the internet.
And I don't want us to lose sight of
Yeah.
town hall maybe in the
Town
fall,
hall, right.
once Madam Director's up to speed and we can get the logistics worked out. But that was something Bill and I worked on
Yeah.
last year, Bill.
It's very early. Yeah,
Um,
like-
That I think it would still be really important, just to invite the community in,
Right.
meet us, ask questions, raise
Gotta allow
concerns.
plenty of space too, because we saw with the other one, people were standing outside,
Yes, yeah, that's true.
so.
All
The
right.
other thing I'd love to
Yeah.
bring to the attention of the
Mhm.
board is I had an opportunity to meet a board member from the Police Foundation.
Foundation.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that part of our mission is to create better relations between police and the community, and she was mentioning that part of their charter is to create that same kind of connection, and she wondered whether it would ever be appropriate for us to work together to develop some community events that would help people get more familiar with what we do, more familiar with what they do, more familiar with what is the appropriate relationship between the police.
Yeah, I haven't pursued that. I
And they have a new
must admit.
director, Susan, just started within a month, I think, so.
Well, I
they're-
told her I would bring this to
Yeah,
everyone's
maybe-
attention here and to see whether
get Inez
they
in
felt
touch
it was
with
appropriate.
Their new director. And just-
And we've also been in discussions now, as a matter of fact, going to the studio today. We're looking at doing a series of informational videos and interviews that the public can access on 10, where we talk about a variety of different subjects. One of the things I'd like to start with is the function, well, first even having someone from the board talk about the history of the board, why it was created, that kind of thing, and then allow for Q&As for people to actually send their questions, and then we'll address them like at a different
Perfect.
so, yeah,
Sounds
we're
good.
looking through it, and actual training that includes the public so that they understand the entire process.
That's great.
Good.
I wonder if we can get it on Instagram or Facebook too, because young people aren't gonna dig into the Seaville site, website, but a lot of other people will, but I've noticed that the CPD's been leveraging Instagram
Being a young
as
person.
they're doing their town walks and all
Well,
that.
social media is important,
Yeah.
so what I can do is I can follow up with communications to see whatever recommendations they have for
Roger
us.
that.
Tells us where we
Okay,
need
sounds
to
good.
be.
Okay, well, it sounds like we're full of good ideas.
Good idea.
And just for your information, our executive director's office is just around the corner, two doors down where the human rights office used to be. And so,
They're right below now, right?
no, I guess they
Human
are.
rights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you ever you want to drop in, she's all by her lonesome there now. So you
Come
do
have
that.
lunch with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All are welcome, to and including the community. Once we get everything in there set up and nice and cleaned up, it would be lovely to have the people come.
So
and
if
sit
my
down and
wife
talk.
kicks me and I can come hang out with
There
you.
you go. That's every 2-3 days.
It's every month.
Adjourn?
Yes, move to adjourn.
Second, right?
Second, yeah.
Come on, James.
4 years, man, I can't get.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you all for coming. We are adjourned.
Thanks, Bill. How was your?
Oh, early.
No, it's very